Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, a non-emergency video. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. We also do have the sale on the premium list that'll last to the end of the month. If you guys want that, check it out in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So the last time we had a non-emergency video on Bitcoin, it was back over here when Bitcoin had a major correction from around $53,000 to $46,000. And that was, if you don't remember, that was, you can see the date, September 7th. If we go to September 7th, that was in fact right here. Okay, so the last time we had a non-emergency video was right here. And the reason we said back then that, look guys, this really isn't that big of a deal is mainly because we knew that September historically is not a good month for Bitcoin. If you go back and look at monthly candles in September, they tend to be red. Okay, so like for instance, this September it was negative 7%. Last September, they're easy to find, right? They're usually the red candles, was negative 7.5%. Okay, you go back to the September before that one, negative 13%. The September before that one, negative 6%. The September before that one, the one red monthly candle right here, right, negative 8.5%. So we said back then that, this is a non-emergency, okay? And, that video was on September 7th when Bitcoin was trading for 46,795. Okay, let's just call it 47K. When it was trading 47K, that was only 2.5 months ago. And that was when people were upset of the drop from 53 back down to 47. Okay, now it did go lower, right? I mean, we went down to 39, but eventually we came out of it and we said, look, wake me up when September ends, right? And then when September ended, what happened? The market moved back up. So we go back and look over here and say, look, is this a sizable pullback? Well, to some degree, it's not even really that big of a pullback. I think, unfortunately, that, the market has been going up for so long, more or less, that people are getting somewhat spoiled in what a pullback looks like. I mean, this is a 15% drop, but don't forget that in that last distribution phase we had over here, we had about a 31% drop, right? We also had a 27% drop or so. Here was another 18% drop. And then this one ended up being, about a 55% drop. So this drop so far is fairly tame, in fact. It's not actually that big of a drop. Now, the other things we've spoken about, and I like to give you guys updates on it every week, whether you want them or not, is of course the bull market support band. That, of course, is where we would like to hold the line in the event of a dump. If we can hold the line above that, then I would say we're still looking relatively good. Now, there is some defense before going down to those levels. You don't need to necessarily think that we're about to drop to 50K, but the main defense could be perhaps the 8-week moving average, because this is what we sort of held as support during the first leg up of the market cycle. Now, a lot of people are still calling for crazy, insane valuations in the next 6 weeks, okay? And they're calling for very high prices for Bitcoin in a relatively short period of time. Unfortunately, I think it's these unrealistic short-term predictions that make these corrections a lot harder to navigate, because in people's mind, they already think Bitcoin's trading at 100K or 200K. They already think it because they've been preached that constantly for months, that it has to go to these prices. And so that if it doesn't go to those prices, and they feel like they're let down. But if you take a step back, you can see that the minimum price of Bitcoin every month since July, you could even say since June, is increasing, right? I mean, even in June, you could say it was below 29K. But if we were to say, all right, well, in July, the lowest price that Bitcoin hit was about 29.3K, right? So July, this is the lowest price. It was 29.3. Now, the lowest price in August was right here at around 37K or so. So if we say August and we're just looking at the lowest price over the last several months, we can say, all right, well, this one was about 37K, all right? From there, we can go look at September, and when we know that one, we had that September drop, we held the line at the bull market support band. The lowest price there was about 39K. But then in October, we know the lowest price was around 43K. Okay, right around this area. So what you'll see is that, you know, there certainly are shakeouts and whatnot. Okay, there certainly are shakeouts, but the lowest price every single month is increasing. And this increase is not even that big of a deal. I mean, you're talking about an 8K increase. You know, this is about an 8K increase from one to the other. Then this one is about a 2K increase. This is in terms of the lowest monthly price. This is about a 4K increase. And wouldn't you know, so far the lowest price in November is at around 58K. And if we look at 58K, even at that devaluation or, you know, depreciation of valuation of Bitcoin, we're still technically up 15K from the lowest price in October to the lowest price in November. Now, I don't mean to blow smoke. I mean, we could of course go lower. We know the bull market support band's all the way down at 50K, but what it does show is that we are generally in an uptrend. And you can also visualize this uptrend a little bit easier, you know, just by looking at the chart. You just go look at the chart and you can pretty easily visualize this uptrend, right? I mean, you know, Bitcoin was down here at 29K, and then again it hit it at around 40K. So you have basically 30K, 40K. And the question now, right? So here is more or less 30K, and this was back in July, and then in September the low was 40K. That was our doom and gloom price. So July, September. Now, I don't know if we're going to go back down to 50K, but even if we did, we're still very much in an uptrend, right? And this is what I think causes people to get washed out of the market, is they lose sight of where we've come from in a relatively short period of time. Now, again, at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen in the market. I mean, I put out what I think is going to happen. I think the cycle is going to lengthen. I think we have a long way to go. But I've also said we're going to have corrections along the way. You cannot expect to make it to 100K without 20, 30% corrections en route to those prices. And so far, you know, this isn't even a 20% correction. And I do think we will have 20% corrections en route to 20K or en route to 100K, whether it comes now or whether it comes in the future, right? I mean, I don't know whether it's going to come like, you know, this month, or if we're going to go to say 70K and then drop back down, if we're going to go to 80K or 90K and then drop back down. A lot of people are calling for 20K again. I'm seeing it in my feeds and whatnot. I've seen people calling for even lower prices than that again, and the reason is because they're basically saying that this is just a double top. Okay, they're calling it a double top, or this is a second distribution phase. But, you know, while there is always a chance they could be right, I would also argue that a lot of these predictions by the bears, and there's nothing wrong with being a bear, so don't give them a hard time. But some of the issues with these predictions is that a lot of these predictions never accounted for a new all-time high, right? It was always, this was going to be a dead cat bounce, okay? It was always, we're going back down to those prices there. And then what happens is you get this impulsive move back up to the upside. All of them are proven wrong. And then the minute you get any type of correction back to the downside, they all the bears come out of hibernation again, okay? And then they start saying, I told you so. But remember, the price right now for Bitcoin is still up about 50% from where they told you it was going to go down, and that was just going to be a dead cat bounce. So while they are celebrating today, I would still argue that the bearish thesis for Bitcoin since July has been unequivocally wrong. Okay, you get these pullbacks sometimes, and you have to deal with that. Now, I think the only question now is, are we going to have a pullback that's going to take us back to the 20-week, or is the 8-week SMA going to hold? Now, the reason that's interesting is because if we were to take that bar pattern that we've looked at before, and we were to simply, let me actually remove all this stuff. So we're gonna draw our general uptrend here at the bottom. and then, you know, more or less at the top. Okay, so that's, you could argue that's our general uptrend that Bitcoin is in. And if you were to draw that bar pattern that we've been following, and you just sort of shift it over, okay, to, you know, the move from 29 to 53, you just shift it over, you can see that the current move has been a somewhat diminished version of it, okay, because if you actually, you know, overlaid this price move here to the current one, it would have suggested that before having this drop, we should have been able to make it to $73,000. But Bitcoin was not able to make it to 73K. We were able to make it to 69K. So you can see it is somewhat a diminished form of what we just saw. And you can also see that this correction has basically taken place on the exact same day, in fact. Okay, and so I think the question now is, are we going to get another? I mean, look, the RSI is relatively low, right? If we go pull up the relative strength index here and look to see what's going on the daily, you know, it still could drop. But if you go look at say the hourly RSI, it's pretty low. The last time the RSI hit that low was actually back in September at that same type of drop, right? So the same drop you're seeing today is a very similar drop that we saw back over here in September. And you can see the last time the daily or the hourly RSI was that low was on that exact same drop, okay? So now we look at this and we say, well, you know, if we were to continue to emulate that move, which there's no guarantee, there's always no guarantee, then it could mean that we might have, you know, a couple of weeks where we don't do much, right? I mean, you know, where the price of Bitcoin could go back up, you know, to 64K or something and just go sideways for a bit. But then ultimately, if it were to pan out, we could still see a correction back to the mid 50s if this pattern were to continue to play out. And the reason why I think it's worth following is because the 20 week is already at 50K, right? And so if the 20 week ends up acting as support again, then you could see something like that where the 20 week is acting as support again, similar to how we held the line over here. Now, what I'm looking for now is not necessarily a test of the 20 week. I'm curious if we can get by with just simply a test of the 8 week, okay? And the reason why the 8 week is important is I don't know if it's every time, but most times that Bitcoin is dropped below the 8 week, I believe we then always go test the 20 week. Okay, so if you see a weekly close below the 8 week, it usually means we test the 20 week at some point. And if you don't believe me, here we'll just go through some examples, right? We failed to hold the 8 week here, and then we tested the bull market support band. Let's go back and look. We failed to hold it as support here. We did get a brief push back to the upside, but it did not preclude us. It did not stop us from ultimately testing the bull market support band, and that time we didn't hold it as support. But if you go back to the last cycle, you can see that every failure to hold the 8 week ended up leading to testing the 20, right? We fail to hold the 8 week, we go to the 20. Here we're basically testing both. We fail to hold the 8 week, we go to the 20. We fail to hold the 8 week, we go to the 20. Again, every time we fail to hold that 8 week SMA, we end up going to the 20 week moving average, okay? And then finally, we didn't fail to hold it. We held it as support right here, and then that led into the parabolic rally. So the thing that I think people need to pay attention to is that there is no guarantee that this second phase has to be a parabolic rally that ends in the fourth quarter of this year. I've been pretty adamant all along that at the very least, if this is a double peak cycle, it's a stretched out version of 2013 and not a version where we have to have a market cycle peak in December or November, okay? So I look at this and say it is certainly possible that the first leg of the market cycle emulated the first half of 2013, and perhaps the second leg of the market cycle will emulate, 2017, and maybe something like this in 2017 where we hold the 20-week SMA as opposed to holding the 8-week. But I think that, at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of emergency videos today, and they'll also sprinkle in their affiliate links and whatnot. But look. These price movements in crypto are fairly normal. It was only 2 months ago where Bitcoin held the line at the 20-week SMA. Do you guys remember when we held the line at the 20-week? It never feels like we're going to hold it, and then we held it. And when we held it about 2 months ago at $40,000. Today, the price of Bitcoin is up 50% from where we held the line, And now you're going to see emergencies and crazy videos, I'm sure, everywhere today. But at the end of the day, this is a fairly normal day in the cryptoverse. This correction so far is actually pretty tame by most correction standards. So it certainly does not merit an emergency. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We also do have the Black Friday sale on the premium list. If you guys want access to the premium content, make sure you guys check that out. You can find a link to that in the description below if you want the sale price. Okay, so go check it out. You can lock in the low rate. You'll get access to weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel, Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, and more. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is your occasional non-emergency video for Bitcoin.